he was like, "Miss, are you carrying a weapon?" And I was like, "Of course not. Of course I'm not." And he's like, "All right, well, it looks here like you're carrying a weapon into Palestine. So I'm going to need you to look through your bag." So he's asking me to withdraw the weapon. And I look over and I see my mom, my dad, and my sister are smoking hookah and drinking tea. And I'm like waving my hands like, "Hey, hey." And they're like, literally my dad like puts his hand up for a second and looks away. Like, "I don't know you."
In this episode, we're going to talk about why it's not a good idea to bring things like, swords across the border into Palestine. Jeez. Over here on the Travel Horror Stories podcast, my friends, there's never a dull moment.
You're listening to the Travel Horror Stories podcast, a show that listens to real stories from travel bloggers and travelers just like you. Then we unpack those stories to discuss safety tricks, prevention treats, horror hacks, and follow-up tactics. The goal is to turn travel nightmares into dreams of beaches, sunshine, and margaritas.
And as always, you can head over to travelhorrorstoriespodcast.com for this and all the previous episodes. There's show notes and links to all the other places you enjoy listening to podcasts. If you're listening via Apple Podcasts, don't forget to give the episode a 5-star rating and leave a comment, because that will help more people find the show.
And now, live from the Rudderless Travel Studio in downtown Toronto, Canada, here's your host, Christopher Rudder.
And away we go. It is May 18th, and today is the best day ever. Not only is the weather great, it's also my birthday. I could complain that it's much of the same as last year, unable to travel, and COVID-19 still exists, in my neck of the woods at least. This time, 2 years ago, I spent my birthday in Bratislava, Slovakia, getting totally sloshed on their cheap and delicious beer. Then I went to this UFO restaurant bar within this UFO-looking structure on top of the SNP bridge for several tasty alcoholic drinks. I was on a day trip from Vienna, and boy, have things changed since then. All that said, I won't complain because I have my health, my family, and my friends are all okay. Oh, and in the middle of last week, I received my very first COVID-19 shot. Yes. So slowly but surely, things are looking up. I feel that by this time next year, I'll be celebrating my birthday in a different country like it was before. Yes. I'm so grateful that you are all hanging out with me today, and in the hot seat for this episode, Katherine Parker-Magyar. How are you?
Happy birthday, Chris. I feel very honored to be here on your birthday. Be here on your birthday episode.
Awesome.
Celebrating you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. So, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm so cool. I lie. It's COVID-19 still happening. So I would be lying if I said that everything is fantastic and super and great, because it's not. By the way, where are you located? I forgot to ask you about that. Where are you based?
So, speaking of a travel horror story, I was based out in...
We're launching right into it. This is perfect.
I was based out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I just tore my ACL skiing. Make sure your bindings are tight on your skis. So right now, I'm back at my parents' house, actually, in New Jersey. So everything's not so great. I'm connected to a knee bender right now and rehabbing my knee. But yeah, so, I know COVID is so stressful, but it seems like it's reopening soon. But for me, I'm not going to be mobile for another month or so. So my quarantine's extended, but more time for podcasts and writing. So it's all good.
Excellent. Perfect. Because based on all the stories you were telling me, I guess you're going to be coming back. So it's perfect timing. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to ask you about that, because you're telling me that you injured yourself. So there, you already explained it. Wow. Okay. So, you guys are south of the border, and you guys are vaccinating like crazy over there. Us up here I'm in Toronto, which is in Canada, and it's been sort of a shit show. So, we're far behind you. Most of your state, I would imagine, is vaccinated. So therefore, people are starting to go out and get together and things like that. But as you said, you can't because you're injured.
Yeah. And I have the first shot, but I guess you have to wait. I know you have to wait, I think 2 weeks after the second shot. So I think a lot of people who aren't high risk sort of have the first. So I'm assuming that by summer, it's going to be the roaring 20s.
Right. Yeah, I guess for you guys.
Yes.
I guess. All right. But before we go down that depressing road, which is depressing for us, not for you, because I'm glad that you guys are getting vaccinated. I'm so happy that, you guys are our neighbors, so it matters that you guys are vaccinated because us as countries, we're constantly visiting each other. So I think it's really important that you guys are vaccinated. So that's great. But I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. I'm actually talking about COVID, to be honest with you, because it's so depressing. But what's not depressing is your website. So tell us all about your website, because it's actually under your name, right? It's not.
Yes. So my portfolio, my website is www.katherineparkermagyar.com. And that's also my Instagram handle, where I share, my Instagram handle is @KatherineParker-Magyar. And I'm a travel and culture writer. So I've written for Departures, The Daily Beast, Architectural Digest, TripSavvy, Forbes, World Travel Magazine. And I really focus on, far-flung destinations, luxury travel, but also adventure travel, cultural immersion. I'm really interested in the people part of traveling. I always find that travel is other people, and my best stories are always, the people I've met along the way. So yeah, if you want to follow along in my adventures, where you can check it out. And since COVID happened, I feel lucky that I've still been able to write about travel, but have focused more on sort of road trips, the American West, the Caribbean, which is still open to Americans, parts of it. And, I've suffered the bust. So I'm excited for the boom moment in the travel industry when people can finally move around again. I feel that travel is important, not just for, broadening your horizons, but also it builds empathy, makes you a better person, I truly believe. And I think all of us who've been in lockdown, and, we sorely need that. I know you mentioned how the US is doing better with the vaccines now, but, the last 4 years have been a hell. I mean, speaking with, our past president. So yeah.
It's another rabbit hole I didn't want to go down.
I know,
sure.
I'm sorry to bring it up. But yeah, so I'm
good. I'm just joking.
So I'm excited to, continue. I'm a writer, and I'm excited to continue the travel part of my travel writing job soon.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I tell all my American friends, because I have quite a few, congratulations on your new president.
I know.
I think for most of us there, even us in the North, are kind of getting nervous. But I think you're right. Once everyone, once majority of the people are vaccinated, then we could sort of get back to traveling, because it really does feel weird for me to say that I haven't traveled in 2 years. That's completely unheard of.
I know.
I mean, at least internationally, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyways, enough depressing talk. Let's play some fun game.
Yes.
Awesome. And I heard that this is your favorite game, so I'm expecting big things from you. Okay.
It is.
So we're going to play 3 stories, 2 truths, 1 lie. You're going to give me 3 stories. 2 of them are going to be true. 1 of them is going to be a lie. And I'm going to try to guess which one is the lie. Off you go. So
I went bungee jumping in Japan. I was in Osaka, jumped off a cliff, didn't speak Japanese, didn't understand what was happening. I went skydiving in Australia when I was traveling around there with my family right after high school graduation. And I swam with sharks in the Bahamas. I was spearfishing lionfish, and then they tossed the carcasses up to the top of the sea, and I jumped in with about 25 reef sharks. So yeah, what's that?
So you're one of those kinds of people, eh?
Yeah.
Adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, apparently.
Everything that you mentioned sounds like completely something that you would do, because they're all related to each other. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that. So the first one, you mentioned about going to the Caribbean. So for some reason, I want to say that you doing the shark thing Sounds like that could be true, but I don't know. Is that something that they do? Like just throw meat around to attract sharks? Is that how it rolls? Like that just sounds so like like setting you up for something. I don't know. It just sounds wrong. So for that reason alone, like I think I want to choose a shark story as the lie.
So the shark story is true.
Oh, damn.
The lie is skydiving in Australia. I've never been skydiving, but I'd love to.
See, I mean, skydiving was just so, I mean, it's just so like, okay, like everybody's sort of done that. I mean, I haven't, but I know a lot of people who do that. So it's not even something that's kind of like,
I know.
Because right off the bat, you were saying like you're all about adventure. So therefore, it's kind of like, okay, well, you played it well.
Yeah.
I can see why you that was very well played. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about quickly the first story. Because the first story was you
bungee jumping,
and the third story is the shark story. So tell me a little bit about both of those real quick.
So I was living abroad as a part of the Rotary program in the US. So I was a Rotary scholar, which people can do still in high school. I was doing that in Osaka and Kyoto, and it was amazing. It was the summer that I was 16, and I spent a month living in Japan, and it was just spectacular. And so I had 4 different host families, and they were all, lovely. I have to say that I wish that social media had been a bigger deal. I think it was like 2003, just because I would definitely be in better touch with these people. And now I feel traveling everywhere, I'm in touch with everyone. But so they took us, my host family took us to sort of an adventure park. And by the end of it, I could somewhat speak some Japanese, or I understood when people were talking about me, at least. I could be Ohio gozaimasu ka, watashi wa katie desu. But at this point, I really had no clue what was going on. And I'm on the top of this cliff with like my friend Nell was also staying with me. And I was going first because Nell was really scared. And bungee jumping, I've heard, is really almost scarier than skydiving because you jump off alone and you leap. And so I'm looking down, and my host family is at the very bottom, and they're in these little, like, they're sitting down, and I can barely see them. They're little dots. And there are 2 guys who are working at this adventure park, and they're probably my age, like 17. And they're trying to explain to me how to jump without breaking your neck. And they were miming it. And I was trying to follow like what they were saying. And so I'd be like, oh yeah, like this. And they'd be like, no. And I was like, I'm going to die. And finally they were like, just jump, miss, just jump. So I go to the edge, and I remember being like, I'm going to die right now. But I was like, well, if I die, like dying by bungee jumping in Japan at 16 isn't the worst way to go. And yeah, I leapt and I lived, and it was pretty awesome. But it was one of the scariest moments in my life. And then in 2019, before everything, the last year of 2020, I was in New Zealand, and I went bungee jumping because bungee jumping was invented in New Zealand. I went bungee jumping there a bunch of times, and I wasn't as scared. That's why I'm like, I've got to elevate to skydiving, I guess, if my knee ever heals.
Wow. That's okay. It's just a little bit funny how they're like, all right, before you jump, let's just run through some rules about how to not break your neck.
Yes.
Like, I love how, like, is that not something that you should be reading while you're in line? I don't know. It just feel like it's just like.
Like, it was awesome. I feel like if I understood Japanese, it'd have been a lot less scary. But
I don't know. I'm deathly scared of heights. So we have a couple. So for example, I'm not sure. Have you ever been to Toronto?
Yes, I love Toronto.
Oh, awesome. Well, if you ever come back, let me know. I'll grab a bunch of travel bloggers together. We'll all go for beers. Yes. If we're allowed to get together by then, who knows? At this rollout of vaccines, who knows? It might be 2030. But so you're familiar with the CN Tower, obviously. Mm-hmm. So the CN Tower, they have what's called the edge walk, where you're allowed to walk on the edge of the CN Tower. 1000% not interested in stuff like that. Bungee jumping, not interested in that. Skydiving, not interested. I think maybe skydiving I might actually be able to handle, because I think for me, when it comes to heights, as long as I can make out what's there, then I'm going to be scared, right? So the CN Tower, like when you're that high, you can still see what's happening at the bottom. But when you're in a plane, nothing looks real anymore. So it
Yeah.
just looks like from a plane or from those heights, like it just looks like you're looking at a Google map. Like it doesn't look real. So I think I might be able to do skydiving, but I don't know if I'd be able to do bungee jumping because you could still make out where you're going to end up. And I don't know. And I have one other story about that, which is actually funny. A friend of mine was telling me this story about how this person before him jumped off bungee jumping, but you know how they ask you about your weight? And she apparently lied about her weight.
Oh my God.
So because she lied about her weight, because she didn't want to be embarrassed, her top half of her body ended up in the water.
No. Oh my God.
I mean, she was okay, but it was just funny because I think it starts to pull.
Yeah.
Obviously, so she's not going in like as if she jumped, but it's just it pulled her up at the last second, but the top part of her body still went into the water. So it was actually hilarious. See what happens when you lie.
Yeah. Oh my God. When to be honest about your weight, your doctor, with your bungee jumping.
Exactly. Now tell us about the shark stuff, because sharks, I think I'd rather go in a cage with sharks than actually go bungee jumping.
So sharks get a bad rap. You know, this person who encouraged me to jump in should work in shark PR. He was like, they are the puppies of the sea and they're fed. But it's actually quite a cool story. So my friend Will Beckham, his brother Woody, he became paralyzed from the neck down, essentially, but just a freak accident jumping off of a boat. And they started the Woody Foundation, which raises money because for rehabilitation for people who've suffered those type of spine paralysis, because they told him that he would never be able to really move below his neck. And now he can like hold drinks, and he's been able to really reclaim so much usage of his body. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So I was down there on a charity weekend where the funds that were raised were going to the Woody Foundation. And a huge part of it was spearfishing for lionfish. So, and this is another thing that's interesting is lionfish, I'm sure many people know, are very invasive species in the Bahamas. They're in the Caribbean in general. They're not native, and they're wrecking the reefs. They're wrecking the food chain. Right. So people were hunting these lionfish. I personally myself did not catch one. I did not get one. I loved my boat captain, but we were going all over these places with no fish, but we were drinking rum, so I enjoyed it. And then on the last day, all of the lionfish carcasses were tossed out onto the top of the water. And these reef sharks are used to, I guess, every other week being fed these lionfish carcasses. So there's probably hundreds that they threw down into the water. And there were two big boats, one big boat and one small boat. This is critical because I was on the small boat because I wanted to get a tan. The large boat was covered. But I had also drank probably 3,000 Goombay smashes the night before. So I'm on this small boat in the middle of the Caribbean in July. It's going up and down and up and down. And I am like, I'm going to die on this boat. I'm so hot. I'm so hungover. I need a change of, I was so unwell. And so then they drop in all these carcasses, and probably dozens of reef sharks come to the surface. Right. And these things are like, I don't know, 8 feet long. They're huge. And they've got the double row set of teeth. So you just see all these teeth coming up to the surface. And then the guy on the larger boat goes, okay, the fish have been fed. The sharks have been fed. Now it's time to jump in. And he's like, the smaller boat will go in first. So I look at my friend Katherine, another Katherine, and I go, are we doing this? And she was like, I will die either on this boat or in that water. Like, I'd rather die in the water. So I'm creeping over, and the guy keeps saying, you know, it's important that you don't act afraid. Like, sharks will only view you as prey if you act like prey. Meanwhile, I'm so weak. Like, my fellow humans are identifying me as prey, but I'm like, all right, don't be prey. Don't be prey. I get in the water. I've got my snorkel on and my goggles, and I look under the water and I look straight, and probably 20 feet, I guess we're underwater. So 20 nautical feet. I don't know. Ahead of me, because we're off the coast of Bimini. The water is gorgeous, you know. Bahamas means oh my God, I'm going into a tangent, but it means Bahama means clear water, I think originally in Spanish. But whatever, the water is very clear. And I look in front of me, and there's a shark, and I can't see its eyes. I just see they've got 4 sets of teeth, 2 double. A shark's open mouth is just swimming directly at me. And I like look down, there's another shark beneath me, a shark to my right. And I'm like, okay, I can't change direction. If I change direction, then I'm going to look like prey. I can't swim away. So I start swimming the same direction I'm at. And I'm at the surface of the water because I'm a human. I've got to breathe. What is this shark's excuse? Do you know what I mean? He's going directly at me. And my friends on the big boat are looking at it. They're like, Katie, it looks like you were like gunning towards a shark, like playing chicken with the shark. But I'm like, okay, don't move. Just keep going. I get closer and closer. And I'm like, really, really sort of scared. I'm freaking out because I'm like, why isn't he getting out of the way? And at I got a male energy from him. I'm not sure. It could have been a female, but I was getting masculine energy. At the last second, the shark dives down just a little bit and its dorsal fin grazes, like I was in like a bikini. It grazed like the length of my stomach and just went down. And we had a moment together. It was it was insane. It was beautiful.
Oh my God.
It was so, but then, you know, by the time the big boat came in, like most of the sharks had dispersed because they were like, oh, whatever, the fish are gone. But yeah, I had a close encounter, and it was a friendship that neither of us will ever forget, honestly.
Oh my gosh. So do you actually value your life? Next question.
I mean,
no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that is cool. I mean, I don't know. I love these little tidbits of information. All right, so jump in the water with these sharks that have 2 rows of teeth, and don't act like prey.
Yeah,
like it's just. How do you manage that? Like, I don't know. Like,
I know. Confidence is everything. Confidence is everything.
Smokes. Yeah, you know, my parents are from the Caribbean, and I don't think that they go swimming with sharks. I think that they might go fishing, but that's about it. So they'd probably be looking at you like, the crazy tourist.
Yes,
let them
yes. I was in Barbados, and my man, Derek Morgan, who was pretty much hosting me, guiding me around, he was like, growing up, you know, our grandmothers would always be like, the ocean has no back door. So like, you know, to respect it and fear it. So yeah, that's definitely a tourist move. But at the end of the day, you know, anything that gets people to view sharks as like not these, you know, they're not really out to get you all the time. If it were great whites, I think I'd be much more afraid.
Fair enough. And it's funny you mentioned Barbados, because that's where my parents are from.
Really? Where in Barbados?
Well, Bridgetown, which is the capital.
I love Barbados.
But my mom's from St. Lucie, which is up at the top.
I've been there.
Province, yeah. I haven't. The last time I was there, I was probably like a teenager. So I definitely have to go back.
You have to.
Joke. I know. But yeah, it's my roots. I'm Bayesian, so that's really cool.
That is so
you
cool.
mentioned that. So shout outs to Barbados. Wicked.
Yes, there's a huge Caribbean population in Toronto.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, there is definitely.
And now you have Drake infiltrating the airwaves too. So I don't know if you want to own Drake, but
well, I don't know if he can be owned. He has pictures of him sitting on top of the CN Tower on his album, so who knows? He's clearly the mayor, so it is what it is. But yeah, no, he's cool. We're proud of him, and Justin Bieber and the rest of our
yes. So true.
And The Weeknd, by the way. Sorry.
I love The Weeknd too.
Okay. So, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those stories. It's definitely going to be fun having you coming back, because if those are the kind of stories you're playing games with, then damn. Can't wait to see what you're going to bring the next time you come back.
Yeah. Oh my
awesome.
God.
What would you do if, while crossing the border from Jordan into Palestine, the souvenir sword you purchased starts setting off every single security alarm and light? You are accused of carrying a weapon and brought into the office for further interrogation. Jeez. So what brought you up to Jordan in the first place?
So it was 2013, and my sister Beth, she was living in Amman, Jordan. She was a Fulbright scholar, and so she was living in Jordan, and she's fluent in Arabic. And my mom, my dad, and I were going down to Jordan to visit my sister, and it was my first time traveling in the Middle East, which was such a revelation as an aside, like the hospitality, the kindness. And it was just, and it was, I grew up outside of New York, an hour outside of New York City. So 9/11 and the aftermath of 9/11, all of the media that I would consume, like if you ever heard the call to prayer, it was to signify a terrorist attack. And there was just so much that pervades this day, just sort of anti-Arabic, anti-Muslim sentiment that you don't even realize is subconsciously infiltrated. And so, you're faced in this situation where I was like the only American in a lot of places, and just, it was eye-opening how lovely people were to me. And that was the number one thing when I came home that I talked about. And that whole trip inspired me. I work with the Amal Foundation, which raises money to send Syrian refugees to college within the Middle East, which is amazing. But so that is why I was there. My mom, my dad, my sister, myself. So we had flown into Israel, gone to Jerusalem, gone out to Jordan. And in Jordan, my dad had purchased a huge sword, probably 10 feet long, because he collects swords from different countries. Not 10 feet, that's a lie. But that's ridiculous. I'm having issues with measurements.
10 feet?
Probably like 2 feet, 3 feet. It was a sword. It was a proper sword that fit into the length of his big, long LL Bean duffel bag. Okay. I myself, I was like, all right, this is such a cool collection. And as an aside, as a travel writer, I still don't really have collections. And probably this is why. I was like, I'm going to get this. I got an Arabic dagger, which is this little machete, probably the size of a ruler. And I had gotten it for my boyfriend at the time. And I was like, oh, this is a great gift. So we were going from Jordan to Palestine. So we took a cab to the middle of the desert, which is truly, it felt like the middle of almost nowhere, but it was it was a bus stop, and the bus takes you further into Palestine. But in order to get on the bus, you have to go through customs and security because you're traveling over, state lines, country lines. And so it's this little hut next to a huge glass building. So my mom and dad went ahead of me and my sister. My dad was right in front of me. He slides his bag in. It goes through security. Nothing went off. He's got his sword. I'm like, great, I'll be fine. I go in after him, and suddenly everything goes like ding, 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 and everything goes off. And then the guard, who was probably, I was 24. He was probably around my age. He was like, Miss, are you carrying a weapon? And I was like, of course not. Of course I'm not. And he's like, all right, well, it looks here like you're carrying a weapon into Palestine. So we're going to I'm going to need you to look through your bag, and this is neither of us speak. He spoke English fairly well, but I couldn't really understand much in Arabic. So this was conversation was a little stilted, but I thought, all right, we go over to pretty much just a folding table that's set up by the customs. And the guard is next to me, and he's too polite to go through my stuff because it's just impolite to do so. So he's asking me to withdraw the weapon. And I look over and I see my mom, my dad, and my sister are smoking hookah and drinking tea. And I'm waving my hands hey. And they're literally my dad puts his hand up for a second and looks away. I don't know you. You're fine. So I'm making a huge thing of looking through this bag, right? There are bathing suits. He's blushing, because it's a more modest culture. It's but then I'm like, oh, I don't see it. And he's like, Miss, maybe in here. And he picks up my shoe bag, and inside my shoe bag is the weapon. And he's holds it up. He's like, I think this is what we're looking for. And I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, it's okay. I have to take you to the head of the security. And I was like, okay, all right, understand. Again, look back. My parents are just smoking their hookah and acting like I don't exist. I'm like, great. I'm going to be led by this man into this building in the middle of this desert. See you never. So we go and we're walking over there, and he's holding this dagger upright, and we're sort of making small talk, or I'm trying to. And, he's in full sort of military and customs regalia. we go into this building that's all glass. Like everything about it is glass. Like it's all tinted glass. We walk in, he leads me inside, and then around the corner is this huge room that I guess is like the head of security's desk. And there are probably 15 men in the room. You know, half of them are smoking cigarettes. The guy behind the desk, who I guess is like the head officer, has got his feet up on the desk. Everyone's cackling. They're telling a story, and then it falls silent. And the guard says something in Arabic and hands over my sword to the man behind the desk. And he sits upright, stands up, unsheaths the dagger and waves it around. And then it goes, John. And he reads it because I didn't got it engraved. He reads the engraving. Who is John? And I was like, John is my boyfriend, sir. I'm so sorry. And he looks at me and he goes, John is a lucky man. And puts the sword back in its sheath, hands it to me, and allows me to continue on my merry way into Palestine. It was so nice. That was so lucky. That would not have gone over well in Israel.
Oh my gosh. So by the time you got back to your parents, were they gone or did you just decide to leave?
We are still waiting for the bus. The bus hadn't left yet. Thank God. But I was just like, God, that was lucky. But people are I find whenever, and this is I haven't had something really horrific. I just knocked on what happened to me. But I really find that people are nice. And if you don't act indignant, if you act apologetic, that you could sort of, I knew that I thought there was a 0% chance I could take the sword with me. But I was like, what's the worst? I mean, things could have been way worse there, but just hilarious. Very lucky. Very lucky.
That's wow. I wasn't expecting it to turn out like that, but I mean, you are lucky because that could really have gone bad in so many ways.
Oh my God. Yeah.
We're talking even possible jail time and all that. But I think you're right, because I think that probably your demeanor, you're kind of I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? Because you're not viewing it as a weapon. You're viewing it as a souvenir, right? Yeah. And I think that's the key. So I think that they should be well versed enough to know when someone's really being deceitful about something. And chances are, if you're smuggling weapons, they probably already have some other kind of priors, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they can tell that that's probably a souvenir.
Yeah.
So that's why they probably didn't make as big a deal about it, but they still need to report it and look you up and all that, because who knows? You might have blonde hair, but you could be a psychopath. So they still need to check it out, right? This segment is brought to you by GPS My City. Do you love exploring cities on foot at your own pace? Well, GPS My City's mobile apps, available on iOS and Android, feature self-guided city walks and GPS-powered travel articles written by travel bloggers and travel content creators for over 1,000 cities worldwide. Visit the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's break this down. Before we get into talking about what you think you could have done differently, or what you've learned from that experience. It reminded me of a similar story that happened to me. So when I was in Marrakesh, Morocco, and so they have these little knives. I wish it's somewhere around here, but I think I put it away. But otherwise, I'd show you. But it's a small knife, probably the same size. It's only like a hand knife, and it has a little sheath thing, but the outside of it is made out of bones and stuff like that. And the top end of it has a curve, right? So it looks like one of those kind of like an Aladdin sort of knife. Yes. It's rounded, but it's really short. And they come in different sizes. So they come in sizes that are big, but this is a little small one. And I thought it was so cool. It was pointy, but it wasn't sharpened, right? So it was for a souvenir. So the design and all that, handmade, it was just gorgeous. I was like, I have to have this. And when you're in the Medinas, those old little markets, you could really haggle the price. They start high. So I really got it in my money, for a really good price for something that's so amazing. Yeah. So I had to get it. Gordana, my partner, she was like, I don't think you should be bringing that, right? But I was like, but it's small, right? So I figure, I'm just going to throw it in the suitcase. It should be okay, right? Like I'm not going to carry it with me,
Yeah.
right? So I ended up buying it, and I did put it in a suitcase. And so when we were at the airport, now I put my suitcase through all the stuff. I can't remember where we're going. We're going either from there back to Europe or something like that. Yes, we were, because it was. I was in Marrakesh. So I went to Portugal because Portugal is close to Morocco. So I was going back to Lisbon, and then to go someplace else from there. So we were going onto the Portuguese plane. So over the loudspeaker in the airport, they're like, "Mr. Christopher Rudder, please return to gate 32. Mr. Christopher Rudder, please come to gate 32." And I was like, "What?" Because that's never happened to me before. So I was like, "What the hell is that?" So Gordy, she's with me, and she's like, "What the hell?" So she gets anxious immediately. So she's like, "I bet you it's the knife. It's the knife, isn't it? I told you." So we go to the counter, right? And then the lady's like, "Yeah, so there's something with your suitcase. So we got to take you downstairs," because obviously they checked the suitcase someplace else. So they take us behind the door where no one's supposed to go, right? So they take us behind that door and they take us downstairs. So everyone at the gate is looking at me like, "Oh, what did he do, eh?"
Oh my God.
We go downstairs, and now we're outside in the outside part of the terminal where, people are driving around with their little suitcase carts and all that kind of stuff. And we're walking through there, and people driving by with their suitcases or suitcase carts are like, "Oh yeah, you did something, eh? You coming down here? What did you get booked with?" All right. They're driving by. And so we end up going to the part, and then they show my suitcase on the TV. And then they wanted me to open it. So I was like, "Oh my gosh." So they want the knife. Again, I'm thinking, if they want the knife, they can take the knife. And Gordy's like, "If they want that knife, you give it to them." Right? So we open up the suitcase, right? And then what was the problem was the lighter fluid.
Oh, wow. Oh
Because
my God.
at the time I smoked, right? And I had a Zippo. So I would always refill my Zippo. So I brought the lighter fluid with me. That's what the problem was. They didn't want the lighter fluid going on the plane. I don't know how many planes I've been on with this lighter fluid, but these guys decided that, well, we're not having it.
Oh
So
my God.
that's it. Took out the lighter fluid. They go, "You can't travel with this." I'm like, "Okay, take it." And then
take it, please.
Take it. Go ahead. And then they closed my suitcase, and then that was it. And I still have my knife.
I wish I could collect knives.
Well, you still could. I think you just need to kind of just be open with it, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah.
But this knife story brought up a whole nother story. And it was a time when I had like a switchblade. But it's like one of those the Swiss Army knives, right?
Yeah.
You know how it has like all those blades and all that kind of stuff? So I made the mistake of putting that in my carry-on and not in my suitcase. So when I put it through the machine, like the alarms went off, and then the security person went through it. And I'll never forget when they pulled that out of my bag and said, "What's this?" The people around me were like, "Oh."
Oh my God.
Like, who was he going to stab on the plane with that thing? So they go, "You can't travel with this, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I completely forgot. That was supposed to be in my, no, it's okay. You can dispose of it, whatever." But it was just hilarious. Just the people's reaction around me, how they freaked like I'm some kind of axe murderer. But but anyways.
Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, but it was those bigger ones. So when you open up the blade, it's bigger. It's not like those little small, cute ones, right? It was a big one. But anyways, it was just funny. This whole knife thing brought up all these stories about knives. So what did you learn from this experience? Like, what would you have done differently? Like, is there anything that you could have done differently? Like, what do you feel you learned from this experience?
So I think that the main thing that I would want to do differently moving forward is having my hotel ship things home. Like, it's particularly like if you're traveling in a place, like that was like the first of like 3 more borders I was going to go through. And I feel like however much money it would have been to ship something from Jordan to the US, it would have been easier, because even if or to declare the weapon, obviously, at the border. But the thing is that, and I think you just touched on this, it's so touch and go, and it varies so much airport to airport and checkpoint to checkpoint what they accept. So like, it's just as easily, they could have been like, no, which would have made sense. Like Palestine is obviously a very, there's a lot of unrest surrounding, there are a lot of people with bad intentions arriving in Palestine. So, and I think honestly, like shipping things home is something that I don't do because in the moment I'm like, whatever, it's not a big deal. But that's something I started doing just a little bit more because, a weapon can get stripped from you, but I've also purchased things that I've broken. Like in Italy, I got this Venetian glass that, I wrecked it. And so I think that shipping things home, and I also think that like being upfront with security, and I know we'll do another episode on this, but like I've been in positions where I haven't had passports or I haven't, or, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But, and I think that the more upfront you can be to begin with, the better luck you'll have. Or like I'm trying to remember too, I was in Trinidad and I left my suitcase behind in an enclosed area. And, just the more direct you can be. And also the more you're shipping things. With weapons, I think it's a great thing to collect if you can. But I don't trust myself, like, not to get it stripped from me at some random point. Like I was in China, I lost all my portable chargers, because you can't have portable chargers in your carry-on. So it's always different by country to country. So
see, I didn't even know that. So I would have totally have gotten booked because I do have like a portable charger with me.
Everywhere
in my carry-on because you have your phone, like it's gonna run out, especially if you have a long flight, right?
Yes.
And the reason why I do that is because not all the planes have the nice little USB thing that you can plug into to charge your device, especially the smaller ones. But you definitely bring up a very good point because I always like when I was in, you bring up Italy, when I was in Venice, for example, there was so much of that like handcrafted glass and things like that. And I saw a lot of it in Greece as well. And actually in Cappadocia in Turkey. Like
I love Cappadocia.
Cappadocia is such an awesome
it's the
place.
Best.
I won't even get into we were talking about hikes, but I did do the balloon ride and I was kind of pushing it there because you can make out what's at the bottom, but the balloon ride was a little bit, but I still survived that and I still enjoyed that. But yeah, it was a great experience as you've done it as well, right?
Yeah. Love that.
That was fantastic. But yeah, there was they make a whole bunch of like amazing glass like that I saw in Cappadocia, those little vases and things like that. And I was always thinking, oh my gosh, I would love to have something like that. But then immediately in my mind, like I'm thinking like, well, how much would it cost to ship something like that? Like, you know what I mean? But then, now that you put it into perspective, if you really want it, like when's the next time you're going to come back to Cappadocia? Right?
I know. And I wish I bought more things. Honestly, like I was traveling pretty much, I would go to like 3 different countries a month for 2 years from spring 2017 up until, spring 2020, I was just on the go. And so when you are traveling that much, you can almost forget, oh, I should buy something here, I should buy something there. But if we're talking about souvenirs, I think the best places to buy souvenirs are Peru and Kenya and Morocco. I wish that I had spent all of my money in Morocco, honestly.
You have no idea. I did.
Draw cash. Smart though, because you could get something. You can get like those 3, just like the crafts that are for sale. And Kenya, the Kenyan beaded headbands. I wish I could live off headbands from Kenya, bracelets and scrunchies and sweaters from Peru, necklaces from Kenya, everything, shoes from Morocco. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Morocco for sure. Morocco, the knife was just one thing, but I fell in love with the mint tea. So, so I even brought one of the little metal tea thingies that they actually make the tea that you pour the tea from.
Yeah.
So I even shoved one of those in my suitcase. In the suitcase, I definitely bought tons of leather stuff, like even like little wallets and things like that. And I bought silver because their silver is like, it's real silver, and it's so like the quality of the leather and the silver and those things, like it's top quality, and you'll never get the price for like a silver ring like that, like over here.
No.
So so there's a couple of things that I actually left Marrakesh with, in addition to the knife. But you brought up a good point with the knives specifically, because they are small enough that they might not cost too much. If you get a sword is one thing, but still it might not costs as much. Because I have to weigh it on a scale of like how anxious I'm going to be if I have to go through like another 4 countries worth just spending like $100 to ship this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because like the anxiety that you must have went through, like you just almost got booked and you still have to go through like 2 other borders. Like that's crazy. Like I would have been dying because I know that it happened once. All I'd be thinking about is, am I going to get called over for my knife? And for me, as a Black person with dreads who's going to be sweating about something that I'm anxious about, it's not a good look for people. Because people, they'll be like, oh, what's he sweating about, right? And that, you know, that's a whole other story. But yeah, I think I'd rather much just ship it.
Yes, for peace of mind.
Yeah, for peace of mind. So I don't need to stress out about it anymore. Yeah, so no, that's a very good takeaway.
And I've got one more piece of advice, I guess. This is tangentially related, but label where you got things. Like label, during lockdown at the beginning, I went through all of the little trinkets and stuff that I got from different places. That's the one positive effect of COVID-19, made me take stock of items. Because there were things that like I was finding that I was like, I don't even remember where I got this from. And you think you're going to remember it forever, but like my dad's sword collection, he's got the country and the year beneath it, you know?
Wicked.
Yeah.
That must be impressive. I'd like to see that collection. That would be really cool. Yeah, because as a person, like as a kid, like I took martial arts, like I took ninjutsu and things like that. So we were practicing with like the wooden sword. So I would have loved to have like a real sword that I could put up like on the wall somewhere. Like that would be so cool. That would be awesome. But that is a good tip. For the most part, I'm pretty good. Like I do remember where all my things come from, like the countries, like where I got everything from.
Yeah.
I do try to find something that's unique to that place to bring back. My office desk is like covered with things that are from all over the place.
I love that.
So I love it for sure. But yeah, that's definitely a good point because I think, I mean, how many countries have you visited?
64.
Yeah, that's 64 places, but that's a lot of things to try to remember. Well, I totally hear you.
I have stuff, but yeah, even if you don't get anything you really like, and I wish that I have nice cameras, but I end up, particularly in a lot of these trips, I end up using my iPhone, you know what I mean? But there are ways like, even like if you print out an Instagram, what is this thing called? It's called Staticgram. I forget. Wow, I'll let you know. But there's this app that you can print it out and it looks really nice. And I feel like as long as you've got a picture, I'm lucky because I'm a writer, so I've also got the story, you know?
Of course, yeah, definitely. But the visual does help. But I mean, but writing, I do like, if I could read a good story, I will immediately get lost in the story anyways. So I can envision everything. But the picture does help, you're right. Oh my gosh, what an incredible story. It's funny because, I mean, it's funny the way that you told it, but I mean, it obviously could have been a lot worse. So I'm glad that you know, you didn't end up in jail or something like that. But yeah, that's such an awesome story. Like thank you so much for sharing that. Now, where can people find you? I'm going to put your website in the show notes so people can definitely click on that. But if people are listening right now, where can they find you, like on social media and your website and stuff like that?
So my Instagram is at Katherine Parker-Magyar, and my Twitter, because my name is too long, is at KPM1231, which sounds like an AOL screen name, but you know, we'll work on it. And yeah, those are I would say really Instagram. As much as I hate like the whole influencer culture, but I do feel like Instagram is where you can probably follow my travels the most when I travel again. And yeah, I share my stories. So Instagram, Twitter, and my website, I've got different sections about each country and stuff. So, yeah. That's it.
Awesome. Awesome. Wicked. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
Awesome.
All right, case closed. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget that you can listen to the show over at www.travelhorrorstoriespodcast.com. And if you're listening on your mobile device, please take a second to give the episode a 5-star rating and leave a comment. It really helps the show, and its episodes get discovered by more people. Plus, your feedback will help me tweak and change the show to make it the best show on the internet. Yes. Cheers.